Hi, my name is Dr. Lucy Meier from Third Coast Foot and Ankle, and today we're going to enlighten you a little bit about runner's toenails. And so a runner's toenail is kind of a broad statement. It usually describes a thick, kind of ugly looking toenail. But we're going to kind of track here a little bit and talk specifically about the injury that the toenails undergo if you are a runner. Now, if you're an avid runner and you have a runner's toenails, you probably have lost a toenail from time to time, maybe even had an ingrown. And so what's happening? Why is it happening? And is it something that we can prevent, or is it just something that your nails are a victim of the sport? So what is happening is the nail is actually getting damaged during the run. Now, the toenail is actually much longer than what we can see at the skin. Its root actually lives underneath the skin behind here. And so every time you pound it, it's actually damaging a line of cells behind that skin. And that's called the matrix, or the nail root. And these little cells actually produce the nail that push it out. So if you're having repetitive trauma, pounding on that nail, these cells are getting damaged. Now, you can imagine that hitting this nail can obviously cause it to become loose. So not only are those cells becoming damaged, but the nail itself and the tissue around it is all being damaged too. Now, we can get blood blisters, or the nail can get loose all on its own, and the nail can then fall off. Typically, a new nail is going to grow back in without major incident, though because those cells were damaged in the process, that nail can oftentimes grow back thicker or with ridges. Maybe it's ingrown, it's curved funny, and it can be painful as it grows out. Once the damage to that root has occurred, we can't really go back and correct it. And so that nail continues to grow out thickened, or with ridges or whatever abnormality that has started out with. So even if you stop running, your nails aren't necessarily going to go back to looking normal again. They kind of are what they are once they get there. So I love to catch people before they get there and try to work on some prevention techniques, because the reality is your nails do not have to look like this if you are a runner. There are things that we can do to help this out. Now, the first thing is making sure that our shoes are appropriately fitted. Once again, this is because of the toe kind of rubbing up against or hitting the tip of the shoe. You can imagine with a lot of terrain, there's a lot of friction that can happen with that foot inside the shoe. So to decrease the risk of that, it's not just about having them appropriately fitted. We don't want them too small where the shoe is hitting up against the toes. We also don't want them too large where they can slide around a lot. So there's kind of this sweet spot. So if you don't get your shoes professionally fitted, I highly recommend starting to do that. Second part of it though is making sure they're appropriately tied. You want to kind of have your heel locked into your shoe to limit as much friction or loosening up of that as possible. So when you put your shoe on, make sure that your heel is seated way in the back and then tie it up tightly. Now, there are ways to kind of further secure your foot in that area to make sure that it is kind of holding there significantly with different locking patterns. So if you need to check out kind of lacing techniques, check out our other videos to make sure that it stays in that position. Now, the third thing I want to bring up is socks, because this is something that we kind of take for granted or completely ignore, but socks can play a big role in our nail health. We don't want to actually wear 100% cotton. That's going to lock in moisture. It tends to get wet and we can create more friction in the area. You want to use a synthetic material, usually multi-layers, or even wool socks can be beneficial at regulating temperature. You also don't want your socks to be too tight, okay? If your socks are too tight, they're gonna kind of squeeze the toes funny and cause them to rub up against each other. You want your toes to kind of have this freedom of movement. They should be able to wiggle without major restriction. So if you feel like your socks are almost holding your toes together, you probably need to go up a size or maybe change the style a little bit to give you back some of that freedom. So if you are concerned about getting runner's toenails, let's start with prevention. Now, if you already have runner's toenails, let's talk about what to do here. So first, if you have chronic damage and you just have ugly toenails, I'm sorry, you have ugly toenails. There are different things that we can do kind of cosmetically. There's something called CariFlex that we offer at our office that kind of give you this nail restoration service, but it is temporary. But if you have a special event and you need a pretty toenail, we can help you out with that. There are situations where we'll actually permanently remove the toenail, and that's not for everybody, but if you kind of have this chronically thick, painful toenail, removing the toenail so it doesn't grow back again, you essentially wouldn't have a toenail on that toe anymore, which we don't need toenails. They're not really serving a whole lot of purpose, and so if you have a chronically painful or a chronically annoying toenail, that is also an option. Now, what about in a situation where it's right off after a race and the nail is kind of black and blue, it might be a little loose, what should you do? If it's not painful, just kind of watch it. If it's really loose though, I do recommend having it professionally removed. We don't want that nail to be ripped off. As you can imagine, that could create more damage to that root, and it could also be very painful. So if it looks like it is about to come off or it's coming off and it's really uncomfortable, make sure that you seek out professional help, preferably from a podiatrist, that can kind of help you get rid of that toenail in a very safe way. If it's just a black and blue toenail and it seems like it is well adhered and it's not painful, we just sit around and watch and wait. The toenail will continue to grow. It just grows very slowly. So a toenail only grows 1 millimeter a month. So it's like watching paint dry. So if you have a kind of a black toenail after a run, you're gonna have the kind of a funny looking toenail for at least a year until that toenail continues to grow out. Sometimes it can fall off months afterwards as that new nail starts to grow out. This old nail will kind of loosen up and pop right off. If that happens, you just pull your sock off and there's a piece of nail in there. Don't worry, just toss it away. You don't need to call us about it. And once again, I really want you to just focus on if you have a painful toenail or if you kind of have this nail that's like hanging on by a thread and you're worried about it ripping off. So I hope that helps clear up some questions about runner's toenails. If you have more questions, please feel free to reach out to us. If you found this helpful, please hit the like button. That helps us out a lot. And once again, I am Dr. Lucy Meier from Third Coast Foot and Ankle.